Morning, class 10 student. Today I am going to continue the chapter of geography lesson 1, and today I have taken the topics on resource is dynamic. First of all, we have already understood about the meaning resource, anything used by human is known as resource. And always remember, resource we are using for our welfare. This word, always remember, this word is important in the next video. It will be important in the next video. so resource, anything used by humanity or for human welfare is called resource. Anything which is not used by human, or it is not necessary that the human will use it, or some a kind of resource, a resource which is used by a person but it is not used by another person, is not a resource. Suppose, as for example, people used to smoke. As he smoke, though he is utilizing that cigarette for smoking is resource, though he is using this resource not for his welfare but for his destruction, but still it is a resource. He is relaxed after smoking, but I do not smoke, so it is not a resource for me. So always remember, anything involved in human welfare is resource. We are benefited by the resource, and resource has each two things, as I have already mentioned, that is functionality and utility. Functionality, that means resource must have any function that is used by human, and utility, that the power, what is the power to satisfy human wants, So how we can understand the power to satisfy human wants, or how we can understand utility? That means, for example, if two persons are going to the market and both of them are buying apples from separate shops, one of the person is buying apple per kilo worth rupees 100, and another person apple buying worth rupees with the same price, that is 100 rupees. The first man, when he come back to home and he consumed the apple, he didn't find the apple tasty. So next time he will not go to that shop, he will go to the another shop. But the second person, he will go again to the second shop. Why is it? Because he found the apples sweeter than the previous. So better he would like to buy from the second shop if it is sweeter. So if he finds sweeter and he is again going to the market, that means he is satisfied, and that satisfaction is the utility of apples, and that utility is the power to satisfy the human wants. So remember this thing, these two properties of resource make a substance a resource. Okay, now as resource is dynamic, so what is the meaning of dynamic? So resource is dynamic when we go and understand about a resource, anything that is used by human. But if you go about more than 300 years back, or about more than 1000 years back, petroleum and coal existed, but people didn't know about the use of coal and petroleum. They found coal as simply a soft black stone. It is not usable for construction of houses, neither it is usable for any buildings purposes. So they didn't use it, they didn't know how to use. So it is merely a neutral stuff, and also neutral stuff has two properties: neither useful nor harmful. So that is neutral. But when man come to know the use of petroleum and the use of coal in the contemporary period, and they are getting certain benefit or welfare, then it become resource. Similarly, resistant, the thing which is harmful to human being, it is resistance. So what kinds of thing is harmful? Let's discuss. Suppose these are the two elements, radioactive elements, which has been using about 70 to 80 years back as a resistance. How? These two radioactive elements, that is uranium, has been used for destruction purpose, and these elements, the discoveries of these two elements is responsible for throwing out the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, destroying lakhs of people, killing lakhs of people. It was a genocide. So it is resistance. We cannot expect about any welfare, but man come to know the other use of this resource. They are using these resources for generating electricity. So in that regards it become resource. Again, another example, it is written in your textbook, that is about the rivers. Before the construction of dams, it destroys the neighboring area by flooding the area, destroying properties, homes, lives, everything. And it was a resistance in this time. But later, when man learned to build dams across the river, and the dams started to check the overflow of the river, and the overflow of the river can be diverted to the neighboring areas for irrigation purpose, and also the water is used for cultivating, that is irrigation, and also the water is used for generating electricity through hydropower station, and this river project becomes a multi-purpose project. So before constructing of the dams, river was the resistance, but after constructing of dams across the river, it becomes resource. So this is the definition of resource. Whenever a question is asked, resource is dynamic or why resource is dynamic, first give a simple definition of resource. Anything used by human welfare, for human welfare, any substance used for human welfare is called resources. And whenever a resource which is neither harmful nor useful is called neutral stuff. And before constructing of dams or utilizing the radioactive substances, okay, it was a resistance, and afterwards when learned to utilize the resource properly, then it becomes resource. Another thing is that in the last, you see, still here resource is dynamic is not proved here completely. It's not proved completely. Resource is dynamic is because if any substance is a resource, in due course of times it may become neutral stuff or resource or resistance. As it is proved that resistance is transformed into resource, neutral stuff is transformed into resource. Same thing, if something is neutral stuff, when we now don't have the knowledge of anything which regarded as a neutral stuff now, and we don't know which one is the neutral, which is neither useful nor harmful. So in due course of time we may start using that neutral stuff for our own welfare, so it may become resource. As vice versa, that means resource to resistance to resource, neutral stuff to resource, and again resource to neutral stuffs or resistance, or neutral stuff to resources. So in this way we come to know that resource can change their functionality and utility. They can change their properties in due course of time. So in this way, resource in dynamic.